Hi, my name is Aya. You're watching Aya Reads, and I'm here to do my mid-month wrap-up, talking about all the books I read in the first half of the month. So, the time I'm filming this, it is actually October 15th. I still technically have one day, or technically 1.5 days to keep reading, but I figure let's just film it now. It's the weekend. I don't have time to film it during the work week, so it's fine. I'll talk about the one book I probably would have read in the next day and a half in my end of the month wrap up. So the way I'm going to be structuring this is I'm going to be talking about these books from my least favorite to my favorite, but I will be starting with my reread. And in the first half of the month, I had one reread. Oh, by the way, I won't be doing stats. I will be doing those at the end of the month. So if you're interested in that, definitely come back at the end of the month to hear about amount of pages read, how I'm doing with my goals, and like genres, subgenres, stuff like that. Anyway, my only reread for the first half of the month was Wolfsong by TJ Klune. This I loved rereading. I gave it 5 stars. Again, it has solidified that it's definitely one of my favorite books of all time. I really love it. I read this for the first time in 2021 and I fell in love. This is a paranormal werewolf story. It's a male-male love story. You follow Joe and Ox, and when Ox is 16 and Joe is 10, they meet, and Joe immediately tells Ox that he smells like candy canes, and what does he call him? Anyway, Joe immediately smells his mate, but they both don't know that. Ox doesn't even know about werewolves, and nothing obviously happens. So when they get older, Ox starts developing feelings for Joe, but then tragedy ensues and Joe leaves for 3 years. And when he comes back is when they finally face their feelings. When he comes back, Joe is over the age of 20, by the way, so nothing problematic in this book. I really, really loved it. Like I said, I love the found family aspects to this book. I love the pack dynamics. I love their relationship. I love Ox. I think this is definitely Ox's story. It's also single point of view, so you only read this book through Ox's point of view, but I fell in love with Ox. The person he starts off with at the beginning of the book is definitely not the person you leave off. You follow Ox for at least a decade, I'm pretty sure. And I really love it, and this will definitely be a book I'm going to be rereading for the rest of my life. And this book definitely solidified TJ Klune as one of my favorite authors. So if you've not read this book yet, I would highly recommend it. I don't think you're going to regret it. Now for my 3-star books. The first one is a novella, part of the Holly Knights series by Leisha Ko, and it's The Four Leaf. So this is technically, like, these books technically revolve around the holidays, but I definitely don't think you have to read them during a particular holiday because it doesn't really focus that much on said holiday. In this book, you follow Sam, I think. Anyway, you follow 2 characters. It's actually a sports romance in a way because the main male character is a rugby player. They have been childhood friends and she has always had a crush on him. But what she doesn't know is that he's into primal play. So basically consensual non-consent. You literally chase somebody, in this case through the woods, and then have sex with them. So, but little does he know. So that's why he kept his distance, because he didn't think that she'd be into that. Little does he know that she is really into that. So in this novella, you see them really confronting their feelings and then having sex. It's really good. I really love these novellas by Leisha Ko. They really pack a punch. Most of the time, you get the whole story in only novella in like a bite-sized piece. It is very hot. And in most of them, like I said, it doesn't feel insta-love because most of these characters have known each other for years. So yeah, I would highly recommend it. I do have to say this is my least favorite of the ones I've read, even though it is a lot of people's favorites. I just thought it was fine. I did enjoy my time, but I don't think I'm going to spend a whole lot of time of my life thinking about it. My last 3-star read is Raised by Wolves by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is another werewolf story. I actually read it in the same vlog I read Wolfsong in. That vlog, by the time you're watching this, that vlog is not out yet. So I think if I remember, I'll leave it linked for you. And if not, just look it up on my channel. So this is a young adult book. And I also read this not just for the werewolf vlog, but also because it's published before 2014. And it is one of my goals this year to read as many of those books as I can. So this has been on my shelves for years and I never read it. And I figured, let's finally read it. So this book, you follow Bryn, and when she was 4, her parents got brutally murdered by a werewolf, and then she got taken in by another werewolf, and she's been raised by wolves in his pack. And now there's this other wolf that she's starting to develop feelings for. I enjoyed my time. I did really love the pack dynamics. I do have to say the first half of this book I enjoyed definitely more than the second half, mainly because you got to see more of the pack dynamics in this book. I did enjoy the lore in this book. Female werewolves are not really born unless they're part of a twin, and Bryn is being raised by the only other human in the pack, and you know, their dynamics and stuff like that. Very interesting. And like I said, I did enjoy it, but especially the second half of this book, I wasn't really enjoying that much. I don't know, I thought the love story made no sense, and it just was in there and I didn't believe it at all. So they were also supposed to be fated mates. I didn't understand that. Like, that needed a little bit more of an explanation, even though fated mates by design doesn't really need to have a whole lot of explanation, and even that kind of lacked in this book. And then there's this whole storyline of her becoming some sort of leader, which I also didn't really understand. So I did enjoy my time. Like I said, the first half I definitely really enjoyed, but ultimately it was a 3 stars, and I will not be continuing on with this series. But I did enjoy my time, and it was not a hardship to read this book. Now for my only 4 stars, and it's Fullmetal Alchemist Volume 3. So I'm really happy that I gave this 4 stars, because for those of you who don't know, the first volume I actually gave 2 stars. I didn't enjoy it at all. And then the second volume turned this series around for me, and I'm glad the third volume is in that line as well. In the third volume, I started shipping Edward with somebody, and that just makes me infinitely more invested. That just puts me in front row with popcorn enjoying your book. So I looked it up too, and apparently it is that ship is gonna be sailing, so I'm very excited about that. Also, I really loved, like I said, what I said in the second volume is the whole brotherly love. In this book, actually, one of the youngest brother questions the oldest brother, and it was just heartbreaking. So I think maybe the 4th or 5th volume will get a 5 star for me. Right now, this was 4 stars, and I am enjoying my time with this manga. I didn't even tell you what this is about. Fullmetal Alchemist, you follow 2 brothers, Edward and Alphonse, and Edward is a fullmetal alchemist, which means like he's part of the government. He does alchemy, so kind of has powers. And when their mom died, he did a spell to try to bring her back, but instead he didn't bring her back, and he lost an arm and a leg, and his younger brother lost his entire body. So he put his younger brother in the suit of armor, and he has like these mechanical arms and legs, or a mechanical arm and leg, and they are on a mission to try and get their bodies back. In this book, actually, they go to this place where more people, like this whole town, deals with these mechanical arms and legs. So that was a very interesting plot line. So yeah, I've been enjoying this manga series, and I cannot wait to continue on. So now for my 4.5 stars is actually Ravensong. Once again, I also read this for the werewolf vlog. This is the sequel to Wolfsong, and I never read this book. So Wolfsong, like I said, is one of my favorite books, but by the time that book came out, TJ Klune got picked up by a traditional publisher. So I just and then I also kind of got into a reading slump, so I never really got to Ravensong. So I just waited until it came out on hardback, and actually did in August. Yeah, I finally read it. You follow Gordo and Mark is actually a werewolf. Gordo is a witch. You meet them in the first book because Mark is Joe's uncle, and this is a second chance romance because they had a thing when they were younger, but then Mark left with his pack, and he left for years, and Gordo never forgave him for that. Their love story kind of starts in Wolfsong because Gordo's determined to keep Mark away from him at all costs, but then Ox, who is kind of like a brother slash friend slash son to Gordo, obviously gets involved with the Bennett pack, so that makes Gordo have to get involved with the Bennett pack as well. And he actually leaves with Joe for those 3 years, so he gets very close to the alpha of that pack and to the other pack members. So in this book, you actually follow them when they come back. And you also, what I really loved about this book is that you get to see snippets of when Joe is actually gone, because you never see that, because the first book obviously is completely in Ox's perspective, and this book's actually completely in Gordo's perspective. So yeah, the reason this is 4.5 stars. Oh, and what I also really loved about this book is that you got flashbacks of beloved characters. You see Gordo when he was a teenager. You see other characters that I've come to know and love as teenagers as well. And you get to see Carter be born, Kelly be born, and Joe be born. So I did really love seeing all that. The reason it's 4.5 stars and not 5 stars is mainly because two reasons. One, the time wasted in this book. Like, if you think about it, Wolfsong was sad because they were apart for 3 years, and that broke me. This book, they are apart for decades. Like, at least 2 decades. Like, they're close to 3 decades of them being apart. They meet when Gordo is a young teenager, and they finally get together when Gordo is 40. So that just, like, the amount, like, the way that just breaks me, I cannot even describe. And that the consequence of that is that we never really got to see their love story fully developed, because of the time in this book we got spent on Gordo keeping Mark at a distance. Because when in the flashbacks, he doesn't really spend a whole lot of time letting us see them actually fall in love. And then once they finally do get together, it's also kind of quick. So the love story didn't really feel balanced. It just felt like 80% heartbreak and then 20% happiness. So yeah, therefore it's 4.5 stars. I still did really love it. Obviously 4.5 is a very high rating. I did really love seeing Mark and Gordo finally be happy. And I also really, like I said, I loved all those things I just mentioned. The flashback, seeing all the characters I know and love when they were younger, and seeing things that we didn't really get to see in Wolfsong. So yeah, I am very hyped to read the 3rd and 4th book, by the way, and I will be reading them. I think I'm going to be reading the 3rd one in November and the 4th one in December, and I'm going to be very sad to be leaving Green Creek because it has become one of my favorite series. But yeah, I am very glad I've read this book, and once again, if you've not read this series yet, I would highly, highly, highly recommend it. Now for my 5-star reads. I do have to say my first 5 stars I'm kind of still debating, but it is a 5-star for a novella. I cannot really compare it to 5 stars for actual novels. Like, a 5-star novella is different than a 5-star novel, but it's Liberty Falls by Lee Jacot again. So this is actually the 3rd book. You don't have to read them in order whatsoever because they don't connect at all, except for the fact that this is supposed to be a 4th of July novella. Although, like I said, it didn't feel 4th of July to me at all. Anyway, you follow Cameron and Arya. They grew up together because their friends are best friends, but they have always had this rivalry going on throughout their entire life. Like, if he achieves something, she has to do it better than him. If she dates the quarterback, he has to date the head cheerleader, stuff like that. Once, when they were in their senior year, something almost happened, but he told her that he basically told her that she couldn't, that they were not really sexually compatible, and that is something he's always thought, that he convinced himself of that. Can you sense a theme here? Apparently in all these books, the heroes think that the girl cannot handle what he's willing to give, because most of these books involve BDSM, until this point where they have once again a rivalry going on, and they make a bet that the person who sells the most gets to demand something of the other. So so one of them wins and demands sex, basically. So they finally get together, and once again, it was fucking hot. It was so hot. And I really loved watching them. And it was, once again, very believable. Like, these people have known each other for years, so it makes sense that once they have sex once, that is it for them. So yeah, like I said, it's 5 stars now. I reserve the right to change my rating. If I do, I'll tell you about it in my end of the month wrap up. My next 5 stars is Lore Olympus Volume 5. This came out in October, and I read it as soon as it was in my hands, and I really loved it. I've been loving Lore Olympus. It is such a good graphic novel series. It is a Hades and Persephone retelling, and I cannot really tell you a whole lot about this volume because it's the 5th one. In fact, it is like this ends with episode 102. Actually, you can read these for free on Webtoons. but I just wait for the hardbacks to release, and I've been enjoying my time. Now for my 2 favorite books I read this month, and I read them on ebook because I wanted to read them as soon as they were out, but I have pre-ordered both of them in paperback. They just haven't arrived yet. And I did a vlog reading both of them, so I'll leave that linked for you. So the first one is Caught Up by Liz Ford. This is the 3rd book in her Windy City series, the first book being Mile High and the second book being The Right Move. And The Right Move is one of my favorite books I read this year. Caught Up, it's a baseball romance. You follow Kai, who's a single dad, and you follow Miller. Kai has been firing all his nannies, so his coach gets sick of his shit, so he sticks his daughter on him. His daughter is this famous pastry chef, but she has not really been inspired, so she decides to take the summer off, and her father really wants to spend time with her, but he's also on the road because his team needs to play on the road as well. So he finagles that his daughter becomes Kai's nanny so he can also spend time with her. So their first meeting, I laughed out loud because that scene was hilarious. Kai thinks she's irresponsible because it's 9 o'clock in the morning and she already has 2 beers in her hand. Little does he know that she actually quit her job and decided that she was going to take a break from like her passion. So when he finds out who his coach's daughter is, he really wants to say no, but he can't. So he has to accept, and you really see Miller fall in love with Max, fall in love with Kai, and realize what she really wants in life. And, you know, cooking and baking is still one of her passions, but the way she's been doing it all these years might not be what really gives her joy in life. By the way, the lighting is just messing me up today. So I'm sorry if this is very dark. Yeah, and I don't really want to mess with the settings because I just don't. Yeah, I really loved it. I gave it 5 stars. It is one of my favorites in the series. I loved Kai. I thought he was such a stand-up guy. I loved watching him with Max, and I just loved seeing him and seeing his struggles and just like him overcoming all that. And I really loved Miller. I thought she was an excellent character. I just loved the way she just blurted things out and made Kai very uncomfortable. And I really loved watching her with Max and trying to figure out what her passions actually were. My only criticism of this book is I felt like it was a little bit too long, which especially at the end, I felt like this book spent way too much time with Miller trying to decide what her passion is and leaving and doing her thing. The amount of pages we spent leading up to that and the heartbreak that's gonna ensue, I felt like that could have been shortened. Like every single plot beat could still have happened just with fewer pages, because that whole section made Miller a little bit unlikable to me. And you actually see that in the vlog if you watch that. It just made me very annoyed with Miller when I knew what she was going to do in the end. So it felt like the fact that she had to take that much time to finally realize that just annoyed me, because she was just breaking her own heart, Kai's heart, my heart. So yeah, anyway, like I said, it's still a 5-star, but The Right Move is still my favorite in the series. And I don't think anything can compare to that book. And what I also really loved about Caught Up was the way the next couple was introduced. I thought I loved watching them interact in this book, and the scene that was in this book just like had my jaw on the floor. I really loved it, and I cannot wait for their book. So yeah, if you've not read the Windy City series yet, I would highly recommend it. And then my last book and my favorite book I read this half of the month, and I think it might be my favorite I read for the whole month, is Hopeless by Elsie Silver. So this is the 5th and final book in the Chestnut Spring series. You follow Bo Eaton, who is former military, like a former like special ops military guy. And you follow Bailey, whose family sucks, and therefore she's become the town pariah. Everybody hates her. And she works at this bar, and we've seen her in the earlier books as well. Bo kind of always had a soft spot for her. He was always very nice to her as opposed to the rest of the town. Although I do have to say all the Eatons were nice to Bailey. So they actually make a bet, because she thinks that the Eatons get everything they want, especially Bo Eaton, who's the town prince. He gets everything he wants because of his name. and she gets nothing she wants because of her name. So he decides to make a bet saying that, you know what, that's not true, and I'm gonna prove it to you. How about you take my last name and see if that changes things? So instead of actually getting married, they get fake engaged. So this is a fake dating romance. And they make a bet to see if that is actually true, if her name is preventing her from getting everything she wants. So this, like I said, turns into, this is a fake dating, turns into like roommate situation. And I really, really loved it. I loved Bo, but I knew I was going to love Bo. I didn't know how much I was going to love Bailey. Bailey was a gem, in my opinion. I loved watching Bailey. I loved reading about her. I was rooting for her every step of the way. I thought she was such a mature character. I really loved her. I loved their romance. And so Bailey's actually a virgin, but she doesn't really act like the shy virgin that we've known in literature. I really loved it. She was a very realistic virgin, because I feel like nowadays, especially virgins her age, they would know a lot about sex. And I felt like, so I thought that was a very realistic portrayal. And I loved watching their romance. It was also very hot. Elsie Silver does not disappoint with the sex scenes. And these ones were top notch. This is actually, this might be my favorite in the Chestnut Spring series. I think I need to wait a while before declaring that. If it's not my favorite, it's definitely my second favorite. I really loved it. I loved seeing Bailey overcome all of her struggles. And I also really loved seeing Bo finally decide what he wants to do in life, because he's always been in the military and he's never really, and now he cannot go back. So he needs to figure out what he wants to do in life. And I loved watching the Eatons and their shenanigans as well. And the hero for her next series was introduced in this book, and I really loved seeing him in this book, if it is who I think it is. So I'm very much looking forward to reading about him. Yeah, I had a very good beginning of the month, especially comparing it to last month where I had no 5 stars. Now having 4 or 5 stars just makes me so happy, and 2 of them I absolutely adored. So yeah, I had a good first half of the month, and hopefully I'm gonna have just as good of a second half of the month. I'm actually gonna tell you about 2 books I'm currently reading. I'm currently reading Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRue. I'm loving it. I'm loving it so much. I'm on page 91, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Hopefully I can finish it tomorrow. I'm very excited to finish it and continue on with the series. And I'm also reading Manacled. I'm not very far in. I'm only 10% in, and I'm really taking my time. I don't know if I can finish it this month. If not, I'll definitely finish it next month. I already ordered a physical copy for this book, and I'm not regretting anything. It is Manacled, for those who don't know, it's a Draco and Hermione fanfiction, but I think it's 1,000 pages long, so it's a very, very long fanfiction. And since there are so many books I really want to read in October, Manacled I'm kind of reading in between books, and I'm kind of liking that. I do know, obviously, since a lot of people really love it, I know for sure there's going to come a point during this month where I want to do nothing but read Manacled. So far I've not reached that point yet. I am enjoying it while I'm reading it, but it is pretty easy for me to put it down. But yeah, I'm really enjoying my current reads. Yeah, and I have a couple reads that I'm very much looking forward to reading in the next half. I'm going to be reading a couple Raka Yaro's books. I'm going to be rereading The Beauty of Darkness, The Traitor Queen, and Kingdom of Ash if I have time. So yeah, very excited for the next half as well. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts were. Also, I would really love to know your favorite book that you read for the first half of the month. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know by leaving a like if you do. And thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.